Welcome to the Female VC Lab podcast. I'm here with Carmen Chan from Click Ventures. Carmen, in one line, why don't you say your name, your title, and the name of your fund?
This is Carmen Chan from Click Ventures. I'm the founder and managing partner of Click Ventures.
Wonderful. So, thank you for being here this evening. What inspired you to become an investor or a venture capitalist?
So I started way back when I was in university. At that time, internet was not even popular yet. And I do the software review for Computer Magazine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so during that time, without internet, when I review the software, the magazine will distribute together with a CD-ROM, and
Mm,
then install a trial version of that software that I review inside the CD-ROM. So it's like a monthly magazine, and then I keep reviewing different kind of software. Then internet come, so I start to get interested in internet, and the magazine also start to get interested. So I write more about internet related topic. So it was
cool.
during those really early stage, really, really early.
Yes, we're showing our age. I remember that. If I'm thinking of the same magazine, I think I used to
Yeah.
buy that with the CD-ROM in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. So
Oh,
basically it get me so excited more and more. I get addicted to the internet. So at that time, after I graduated from my master, I applied for a PhD in Imperial College.
mhm.
But in the same time, after my application, I also started my own startup.
Oh, wow.
And so as that, it take 1 year for the college to give you a proper offer. But at that time, I already running my own startup for a few months. And so
Mhm.
it turned out I didn't want to go for that PhD, although I got a sponsor for it. And so I gave up, I dropped out the PhD and continue my startup journey.
Okay.
So basically, I have spent 17 years
Wow.
running three different startups. All exit, two were acquired by listed company, one in Hong Kong, one in Taiwan. One of the listed company that acquired my early startup was a newspaper group. So I also get exposure of writing books, newspaper, and the media business model. I got some
Mhm.
exposure. So I find it really very helpful for my all-rounded knowledge because I have operate as a startup founder,
Right.
and then I also write the column for tech magazine and newspaper about internet business model and internet marketing strategy.
Mhm.
And then the exposure in the newspaper, running a media business also helped me a lot. And I spent around 7 years in the newspaper group. And after that, around 7 years ago, I plan to have my second child.
Mhm.
So basically, I have my first child when I start my first startup. And then now I start my new journey to have a second child. So when I was doing full-time angel investment, I carry a big tummy around all those tech conference. So
Probably stood out very well.
yeah, but the
Which
problem
is
is
awesome.
right after I give birth, people cannot recognize me.
Oh,
That's the problem.
interesting. Okay.
Yeah, they cannot. They cannot recognize. Oh,
Was a
yeah,
little bit
you
of a
look.
change. Yeah, there was a
Yeah,
baby and now that's a
yeah,
baby. So, okay.
yeah. And then, so basically, I spent around 2 years to do angel investment.
Okay.
Before that, right after my exit,
Mhm.
I didn't make the decision to focus on angel investment rate. I spent like a few months to really open up to anything, including property investment, small business investment. I look at anything. I
Mhm.
visit some small restaurant, cafe.
Mhm.
I even look at some beauty center. So anything. And because I've been doing some property investment before, all the
Mm-hmm.
way while I was working on my own startup.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, oh, maybe I spend more time, make it full time. So I also study the property investment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also look at the tech world to see whether there's any opportunity. But after a few months study, I found that angel investment should be my focus because I think it was 2013,
Okay.
and then I have my second child born in 2014 January.
Mm-hmm.
So during that period, I found that there is new trend for angel investment. There are a lot more opportunity. There are more network that you can join, and also
Yes.
the standardization of the term sheet
Mm-hmm.
and platform that can facilitate the transaction or
Yes.
and even those contract like YC
Yes.
Safe
Yes.
500.
More
uh
standardization.
yeah,
More standard. It's like more
standardization.
standardization instead of everyone having their own little version of
Yeah, yeah,
everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I found that the standardization and also all these new platform,
Mm-hmm.
it facilitate small check ticket. So founder more welcome for smaller check, and then angel investor can diversify using small check to participate. And so at that time, you could have 50K is already a decent size.
Yeah.
So you can get into a lot of seed stage investment
Mm-hmm.
and start to learn. So I find it's a golden opportunity for me to learn about this whole new world. So I did around 20 investment
Oh wow.
across a lot of country actually, but mainly in US because most of the opportunity are still in US at that time. The
Okay.
market are more mature compared to
Yes.
other market,
Mm-hmm.
but still you can cherry pick some good one in other market. So I did some in Hong Kong and even Korea and Europe, like Finland, Estonia, Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
So I did many these small chat angel investment for 20 companies. And then in 2015, I found that it's the right time to start a fund to
Okay.
institutionalize
Mm-hmm.
my angel investment because I really like it. After doing it for 2 years, I found that I really like it. And before I write column to gain knowledge, gain exposure. But in those 2 years when I do angel investment, I change. So I stopped writing column, but I do a lot of international speaking.
Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
it complement and it give me new exposure. So
Yes.
I have the opportunity to go to different country to
Mm-hmm.
speak for different event and get connected to other international speakers and local player. So I have exposure of the global view, and I can see the globalization of entrepreneurship back in
Yes.
2015. I can see
Yes.
that trend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I start to have a lot of invitation to share my cross-border investment journey. So basically, that's my story to get into the VC industry. And
Great.
I found that all the exposure that I mentioned before really helped me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, when I sit down and talk to the founder, they feel the question that I ask are totally different from other VC because most of the VC, their background, especially in Asia, they are financial background. So they
Right.
come from investment banking
Mm.
or management
Maybe.
consultant. Yeah, a
Okay.
lot of
Management
them,
consultant. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So a lot of them didn't have the hands-on tech related or internet related
Mm-hmm.
operating experience.
Mm-hmm.
And but for me, not only I have the tech, the internet related operation experience, but also when I write all those internet business model for my column,
Right.
I write weekly column. So
You had
imagine.
clear understanding of all the different business models and revenue models,
So
which is great.
basically, I become really addicted to all these business model. I love it so much. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I can brainstorm with the founder, like for a few hours even, just to brainstorm and fine tune the business model. So all these
That's great.
exposure give me the sensibility to really ask very deep question very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the founder feel my question provoke them to think.
That's
And
good. That's a powerful thing.
yeah, because I did learn in the whole process and I rethink how I ask question. Because as a
That's
founder
half
myself,
that's half of the battle as an investor. Are you
yeah,
really
yeah,
asking the right types of questions?
exactly.
Hmm.
Because as a founder, there is a
As a founder, I
um
was a founder as well. So it's a
yeah,
different
so there is
perspective when
a
you've done a startup
yeah, yeah,
versus
yeah,
when you have not.
yeah, exactly. But
Hmm.
there is a disadvantage of being a founder before is you get too excited or you get too involved, and then
Hmm.
you have too many your own idea that you want to push to the founder. So I found in my journey, I found that the idea ownership is very important.
Yes.
So you don't own the idea. You don't let the founder feel that you already own that idea. And then the founder don't want to do it because he didn't have the ownership. So I learned about this throughout the journey. And
Hmm.
then I keep fine tuning my question in a way that I am not the owner of any idea. I just ask question for
Right.
you to discover your own idea. And then you own those idea and you are responsible for the implementation of your own
Correct.
idea.
The execution of that
Yeah,
idea.
exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly. So that's what I have learned as an investor for so many years to
That's great.
to ask a certain question when I feel, oh, this have some question. So I ask it so that the founder will think, is this the perfect model? Is this
Hmm.
the right strategy? What would
Hmm.
be the alternative if I
Right.
want to reconsider? So what would be the alternative? So I focus on feeding the founder a lot of different possibility or
Hmm.
example from different market. Very important because as
Yes,
an investor,
I agree.
you have the advantage of exposure of a different model in different market, and you have the exposure of what's the advantage and disadvantage of different model,
Yes.
and when or why a certain startup would use this kind of model, but it may not suitable for you. Like the other day,
Yes.
I was speaking for an event. They discussed about the growth model and the profit model,
Hmm.
right? Some startup focus on growth. You
Yes.
get as
Like
big
Uber,
as
you get
possible.
a lot of customers.
Yeah,
Like Uber, you're going to get a
yeah,
lot of customers as fast as our Facebook is a lot of customers as fast as
yeah,
possible.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And then some startup focus on profit model. So you get
Right.
profitable as soon as possible so that you
Yes.
could survive.
Yes.
Right. So survival is very important. So
Survival is
what's the
critical.
difference? Yeah, what's the difference? So what kind of startup need to grow? What kind of startup need to focus on profit?
Hmm.
So actually, after I've been thinking about this for a period of time, so I can share some of my thinking and insight with the founder. If you, I can also share some in this podcast.
Yeah, we'll get to that. As to
Yeah.
that'll be the third question. Okay, so what is your investment thesis and what is the motivation for your investment thesis? Like, how do you go about selecting these companies that you potentially invest in?
So my investment thesis is actually that was a reverse process. The meaning is when I start to do the angel investment, so for around 2 years, I invested in 20 companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that although I invest in seed stage, very early stage company,
Mm-hmm.
but my failure rate is very low. So for
That's excellent.
20 investment that I did, I only have two failure. Two company really, one is because of the political turmoil in Turkey.
Well,
So
can't do
they have
anything
a,
about that.
yeah, they have cash flow problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one, yeah, they didn't make it. So two failure. And then when I start the first fund, again, the whole portfolio is only, every portfolio that I build is either zero failure or two failure,
Mm-hmm.
very consistent.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look back, why the company that I invest are so consistent, that low failure rate, and our overall performance is top quartile as well. We just got a consistent top performing recognition. And so
That's wonderful.
I try to look back because
Mm-hmm.
it's consistently low failure. And then the performance overall for the whole portfolio is also very consistent, that our net for the seed fund is about 30%.
That's excellent.
So I try to think and study back, and I found that there is a few pattern in my investment
Mm-hmm.
that help to facilitate this consistency.
Mm-hmm.
So one is because of my experience as a columnist. So I found that I'm as I mentioned, I'm very addicted to the internet business model.
Yes. Yes.
So every day, basically, it become my habit when I look at anything. Even when I just go to a restaurant, I'm very sensitive to all the process and
Mm-hmm.
how they take
How
the
they do certain
menu.
things. Yeah. How
Yeah,
do they
how
do
they
the
do
menu?
certain things.
How does the line
So
work?
yeah,
How do they
exactly.
take your money?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So I look at the world as many different process, how we live our life, how the business work with each other, all these process,
Mm-hmm.
we have built it and they have been running for many years,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then new technology, especially new internet related technology come up. So entrepreneur got the opportunity to redesign these process
Yes.
using new technology.
Yes.
And so I find that I'm very addicted to the redesign of new process. So
You
this
know,
is
that's a
my,
huge that it solves a real world problem. And that's the thing, like
yeah,
making those processes more efficient. I do that as well.
yeah,
I'm very into the efficiency of processes. Making those things more efficient can help, like you said, with either growth or profitability because you are making something more efficient and then the person can
mm-hmm,
be more efficient in
mm-hmm,
what they do. So then that means you may be able to do more of it.
yeah. So I find this focus provide me a very good framework when I
Mm-hmm.
look at the investment opportunity, because quickly I can see whether this new business model the founder is building is really is really bringing a lot more efficiency to
Mm-hmm.
the system, and then whether they are leveraging a new technology, internet related new technology, just become mature and it was not possible before, but
Right.
now it's possible. So these open up like a blue ocean opportunity for the founder.
Mm-hmm.
So the company, like you just mentioned, like Uber, they
Yes.
leverage the location-based technology.
Correct.
Before the smartphone, before the location-based, it's impossible. But now they can design the model in this way and
Yes.
totally replace all the call center and the efficiency.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is the kind of model I'm interested. But then when you get into detail, what kind of model? Because everybody are trying to do that. A lot of entrepreneurs, they're trying to
Many
redesign the
people are
process.
are trying to do that.
Yeah. So how to do it and who can win? Then this need to go into the detail on the
Yes.
execution level, right? The knowledge of the founder, whether they can learn very fast.
Mm-hmm.
So I measure the founder's learning ability through
Oh,
my Q&A because I believe no one know all the answer.
no.
So the only people who can win is they can learn very fast and they
True.
know what they're.
And adapt a little bit.
Yeah. So basically, after follow up with them a few meeting through the Q&A, we can understand their knowledge level.
Mm-hmm.
So if they need to have a certain knowledge to start with, and
Yes.
then they need to have a methodology to help them to evaluate their model and fine tune. We call it iteration, right? So they need to have
Yes.
the ability to iterate and they need
Yes.
to have the ability to pivot. So these are
Yes.
some of the key points that I will look at the founder, whether they have the knowledge, the relevant knowledge, and the relevant learning ability, because you come to be too slow in in this
Well,
world.
no, and there are these other soft skills. Do you have courage? Are you afraid? Sometimes
Hmm.
founders they don't want to do certain things because they have fear. Courage is
Yeah.
important. Do you have perseverance? You're going to hear no quite a bit. So do you have that capability of sticking to what you have? There's many things there around a
Yeah.
founder. I agree, quick learning is important. And you do have to have certain understanding of your industry and what the real actual problem it is you're solving.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Hmm. Yeah. And then one thing that I particularly interested is the model itself from the founder, whether they
Yeah.
have accumulate a lot of things that can help them in the future. If you
Hmm.
look at we just mentioned the growth model and the profit model, right?
Yes.
If you
Yes.
look at Facebook compared to Uber,
Yes.
so Facebook is very good with the growth model. One of
Absolutely.
the reason, one of the reason is Facebook has a very big network effect
Correct.
that make the user very sticky.
Yes.
Uber also has network effect.
Yes.
When you have more car, then you have more user because user can get a car easily, so
Yes.
they will stick with your service. So
Correct.
Uber also has this network effect, but
Correct.
Facebook is even stronger because all your friend, all your network, and also your own memory. Because Facebook
Yes.
store your memory. So
Hmm.
when it store your memory, it's very difficult for you to
To come off of
completely,
that,
yeah,
completely
just
come
say
off of
goodbye.
that. Yes.
Yeah,
Exactly.
very difficult. So you see they have a lot of
But Uber, not so much.
algorithm. Yeah,
Not
so
so much.
so what
Because like
happened is,
you can always use the other
yeah,
service,
yeah, exactly.
and they're equivalent as far as
Yeah,
okay, and then it becomes a loyalty to a brand. Whereas agree like
yeah.
LinkedIn or Facebook or things like that have that huge network effect, and they have that memory,
Mm.
corporate or otherwise, personal. It is
Yeah,
harder to like how do you undo all that?
yeah,
If you've been on
exactly.
Facebook for many years, how do you undo all that?
Yeah. So you can see the on-demand model like Uber,
Mhm.
both driver and both user, they are using several app in the same time.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
then you just cherry pick every time. You
Yeah.
cherry pick. And but Facebook is more sticky.
Correct.
So that's why for Facebook, the growth model makes sense because you need to
Yes.
capture the biggest market as soon as possible so that you
Mhm.
create this network effect to make every user very sticky to your platform.
Correct.
And then the later competitor is much more difficult to compete with
Right.
them. So that's why you see
Yes.
all those latecomer focusing on social media. They are focusing on the young, much younger user
Yeah.
who
Never
never
really
hope
got onto
to
Facebook. Never really got
Facebook.
onto
Yeah,
Facebook.
yeah. And so they use strategy okay, you want to be away from your parents, so you stay in
Right. So
this.
you go over here.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very familiar with that.
Yeah, exactly.
uh,
So that's what's happening. And this also explains the growth strategy. What kind of
yes.
company will be suitable for the growth strategy? So it's related to the network effect
hmm
and the stickiness. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are you currently learning or listening to or reading these days?
So for the listening and reading is pretty random, I would say.
All good.
Yeah.
Any
Of
any
course,
kind of
I
any
have
kind of
some
like from a topic side? Are you reading business books? Are you reading what are you
oh,
listening to? Are you listening to podcasts or what do you
some I read. Sometimes I read newspaper, no
Oh, okay.
newsletter from like CB Insight,
Oh,
and
yes.
sometimes
Mhm.
I listen to podcasts like 20-minute VC.
The 20-minute VC. Yep.
Yeah,
I'm
and
familiar with that one.
also another podcast related to LP. So it's like capital allocator, something like that.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember, but it's pretty random. Sometimes I listen to this, sometimes I listen to that, because so many things. So more often is I heard of a term I don't know, so I search internet and then read about it. This happen more
Oh, okay.
often. Yeah,
Okay.
so
That
it's
makes
like
sense.
a proactive. It's like a more proactive way
Mhm.
of really get into some information that I want to
Yes.
understand. Yeah,
Yes.
instead of just listen or read newspaper
That makes
or
sense.
newsletter. Yeah.
I'm like that as well. I get many different touch points of things. And then
Mm-hmm.
depending on what it is, I might be reading about what have you.
Mm-hmm.
It
But I
is
would
all kind of
say,
random, but it's not.
yeah.
And then I watch a lot of YouTube personally. Like I get information
Mm-hmm.
from YouTube and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
I've kind of gotten on the video thing, so that's been
Mm-hmm.
interesting as well.
So you can say the whole process is pretty dependent on the search engine.
Very true.
the the whole process. So either
Very
you
true.
search in Google or you search in YouTube. So the
Right.
whole process is pretty dependent on search engine. And then another information that I have is among all those different kind of VC group or female
Yes.
VC group or any VC group. So people sometimes will share different article. Yeah. So
Yeah.
these would also divert me to different article from different publication.
Mm-hmm.
But I did
Mm-hmm.
much less on Facebook. Before I
Before
spend
I was
some
on
time.
Facebook as well. I have a lot. I've been on Facebook a very long time and Twitter as well. And like I would get all my it less on Twitter. I was always now more a little bit more on Twitter, but initially I was getting
Hmm.
a lot of information on Facebook because you'd have your friends and they'd hear about things and you trust your
Yeah.
friends and they would tell you these things like, hey, this is happening. And I'm like, wow, is this really
Hmm.
happening? And then maybe several hours later, the news would figure it out. I'm like, all my friends knew about this way before the news. So it's just
Yeah.
interesting how you get information sometimes.
Yeah. So there was a period of time. Most of your information is filtered through your friends' network or
Mm-hmm.
through the Twitter's network,
Yes.
the account that you are following. So you can see there is a trend to redesign how you buy things.
Yes.
So you used it
Absolutely.
to rely on this network to hear, to read, to get information. And then in China, there is a trend to all these influencer marketing and
Mm-hmm.
influencer related shopping. So you have a lot of these live streaming, uh,
Oh, interesting. Like
broadcaster.
people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so people who are good at a certain thing, so they will live stream and then
Yes.
they add the e-commerce element. So they may talk about make how to protect your skin, blah blah blah, and then they will
And then have the makeup.
have the e-commerce element that you can also shop, buy the
Right.
thing. So this is huge in China. So
Makes
basically,
sense.
they are one level up. It's
Yes,
no
I could see
longer
that.
just sharing of information. It's one level up. That okay, you can buy that.
Share
Not
and buy.
only
That's
Yeah, not
great.
only
I'm glad
just
to know
know
that's
about
finally. I'm
it.
glad to know that's finally here. I've been waiting for
And
that.
those company become so big, you know.
Yeah, because like they're unique in this time. In this time, like
Yeah.
they're different. So when you have
And the
something a little
social
different.
shopping, the social commerce
Mm-hmm.
has been around for a few years in China.
Oh, okay.
And they get so big that imagine like selling a tissue box.
Mm-hmm.
They could have millions, like 1 million tissue box has been sold through that network, or a
Wow,
few million. It is
that's interesting.
amazing.
That's
It's
interesting. Wow,
amazing.
that is
And
amazing.
there's one company get listed within like 2 or 3 years. They become unicorn within 2 years because of
Wow,
this new
because of
model.
that model. Interesting.
Yeah,
So
social e-commerce.
show e-commerce.
Yeah,
That's something to be looking out for.
yeah.
Interesting business model. So in 2 years, when we're talking again, how have you seen venture capital? This is the bonus question, by the way. How have you seen venture capital evolve in 2 years or investing? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I think if we put in COVID
Mm-hmm.
into the context, so
Mm-hmm.
COVID accelerate some of the growth. So I mentioned
Yes.
the term like globalization of entrepreneurship.
Yes.
I've been talking about this for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
Before, you can still hear a lot of VC talking about, oh, the founder, they need to stay in their own country for a period of time until they gain enough traction in their own country before they expand to other region, blah, blah, blah. And then VC only invest in company nearby them. And I think even 5 years ago, I start to see a few trends that is going to change all these. So one trend is you will see a lot of these internet mobile related business. They
Yes.
have platform and tool that help them to market to different country. So they can cherry pick. Company like TikTok,
Yes.
Musically, right?
Yeah.
They cherry pick. How they cherry pick? They just do a testing across 50 market. And
Interesting.
then they see which country has the biggest feedback. And they focus all the resources into that country. And because
Mm.
all those measuring tool is available, so they can
Right.
do it remotely. They can
Yes, you
just
can
do
do
it
it quickly too.
remotely.
You can do it quickly
Yeah,
too. Because like you said, if you put it into 15 markets, you can see, oh, it doesn't work here. It works here. Oh, it works
yeah,
here. And oh, it really
yeah.
works here. So like you said, where should we concentrate the resources? In this place where no one's using it?
Yeah, exactly. So they use all these remote tool to measure the performance, to fine tune the model. They
Mm-hmm.
don't need to be there. They can do
Right.
it remotely.
Right.
And so this is one trend that mobile internet facilitate this globalization. So
Yes.
company can become global much faster.
True.
Some can become global in day one. Some can expand internationally or regionally within 1 year. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my observation in my own portfolio company. And then another trend
That's
which
been my observation
started,
as well in general. Just having gone around and talked to a lot of different places, I found that as well. That
yeah,
globalization can be
exactly.
fairly instantaneous depending upon what you're doing.
Exactly. And
Mm.
then another trend which already started like 5 years ago is the remote working. I found some of my portfolio, they need to expand very quick,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they see the opportunity. For example, okay, I'm going to expand my developer team.
Yes.
I need to hire a lot of developer.
Yes.
So which countries should I put my developer team? So
Mm-hmm.
some of the founder who has the ability, they can cherry pick.
Yes.
They don't need to have the developer team within their own city. They can
Correct.
cherry pick.
Mm-hmm.
And so like in Silicon Valley, I have one team. The founder is actually from India.
Okay.
They are in US,
Mm-hmm.
but they have their developer team not in India and not in US, in Eastern Europe. And
Okay,
I asked them
that's
why.
common.
I asked them why,
Probably
and
less
they
expensive, probably
let's
higher
a few
quality,
a
you know.
few reasons. So they didn't pick India because they found the developer in India are much more laid back and
Yes.
difficult to remote manage.
Yes.
And the Eastern Europe developer are very easy to remote manage. So
Yes.
basically, you give them schedule, you give
Mm-hmm.
them very clear instruction. They can auto run, and of course,
Very
they
true.
have good quality.
High
They have
quality.
good quality. I yeah
That's a big difference. It's a big difference.
yeah. So I start to see all these, and then so the good founder they start all these trend much earlier,
Yes.
and the other founders start to
They just
learn
do it a
from
little bit
them.
later. Yes.
Yeah, they do it later. So or they do it a little bit more
Or they do it a
carefully,
little bit.
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, more
That's true.
carefully. So this has been around for a few years, and then now COVID. COVID.
Yeah. So I've been remote working since
Yeah,
1993, strangely
yeah.
enough. So I've been doing it a long time. So I was
Mm.
very familiar. So when COVID came, that didn't impact me one way or another. I was like, I've
Mm-hmm.
already been doing it this way for a very long time. But most
Yeah,
people that hadn't been doing it, it was like a shock. It's a culture shock.
yeah.
It's an implementation shock because it's you don't get that for free. You don't get remote
Mm-hmm.
working for free. There are some things you have to think about
Mm-hmm.
in remote work.
Yeah, yeah. So
It's
I
not
think
impossible.
so.
Think
You
about it.
asked me what happened to VC after a few years.
Yes.
So imagine if VC, if all the VC accept this, globalization of entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
So VC would also be more open to investing in company in different country, because
Yes.
now you already have VC or even LP. LP invest in VC fund,
Yes.
VC invest in founder
Yes.
without meeting each other face to face. So they
Yes.
just have a few Zoom meeting and then they invest. So
Mm-hmm.
this has started to happen.
Yes. This
And
has started to happen. Absolutely.
yeah, so role model is very important. A lot of people wait for role model, wait for some real example. So
Mm-hmm.
when you have the from 0 to 1, you have
Yes.
these little examples scattered around the world,
Mm-hmm.
then this one will become 100 very quickly,
Very true.
because everybody will feel, oh,
Well,
somebody did that. It happened.
then you've crossed the chasm at that point. Then you get the mass adoption. You can do 0 to 1, or you do crossing the chasm. Either way, you have your early adopters. It's okay.
Yeah.
We tried this, and then like you said, a few more people find out. Then you get to 100. Then you like cross the chasm. Now everyone's doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I was doing my angel investment, I
Mm-hmm.
did it remotely. I
Yes.
invest in some founder just through this remote meeting
Mm-hmm.
without meeting face to face. And I only visit them like once a year
Yeah.
after my investment.
Yes.
And then we meet face to face.
Yes.
So a lot of people cannot accept that, back in 2013
But
and 14.
it's a style. It's a
It's they
style, and
yeah,
it's
they
a
cannot.
like what does it matter? You did the investment. You did it. It's not like you didn't meet the people, and then when you met them in person, they were the same people you did the investment to. It's not
Mhm.
like they were pretending to be someone else.
Yeah.
So I
But the
don't understand.
problem,
I don't understand that. Meant to me, I'm like I'm similar to you in that I can meet you on Zoom several times, and then we can meet in
uh-huh.
person or if you want to do the final transaction, we meet in person. But I think sometimes I agree with you. The way we're doing business has even gotten drastically changed because of the COVID.
Yeah, exactly. Because the problem before may not be totally the problem of the VC. So it
Yes,
really go back to the LP, whether the LP accept you to do this remotely, you
correct,
know,
correct.
because the LP will have a
Yes,
lot of doubt that, oh, you are not in that market, you are so remote, how can you get the best deal, blah, blah, blah. So LP is not convinced before. But now, when the LP also start to invest in fund manager remotely, they won't doubt you.
they doubt less.
And another reason could also be 6 years ago, you don't have all these WhatsApp group. But
True.
now,
There wasn't as much
yeah,
WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal. I don't know,
yeah,
Slack. Oh my gosh! If
yeah,
I get on another group, I'm really gonna cry at this point. Like how many
yeah.
of these things do I need? How many things do I need? But these are the way that has evolved communication as well. So you can
And
constantly
one
be in
of the,
communication with someone, and you can
yeah,
really almost substitute email for
mm-hmm,
WhatsApp. You don't need email
mm-hmm,
like you do, but not.
yeah. But the impact on all these WhatsApp groups, Slack, all these, we call it remote tool. The
Yeah.
impact is it take away the time zone issue. It take away the
Yes.
cross-border issue, right?
Yes. Yes.
Before you communicate with your founder, maybe in a phone, and you
Hmm.
need to be in a similar time
Or
zone.
you had to
But
fly, or you had to
yeah,
fly somewhere.
yeah, but now you use WhatsApp, it means you put a message now. The founder maybe reply you a few hours later. You don't
Yeah.
need to be in the same time zone.
Correct.
A lot of communication can still go on.
Yes.
So all these tool, I said these tools facilitate the cross-border communication in the next level.
Yes.
And
I agree with that.
so I
100%.
be yeah I so I a while ago, I think 1 or 2 weeks ago, I just remind all my portfolio company again that now is the golden opportunity to go global. I
You're
tell
right.
all of them
You're right.
because imagine before if you, oh, I have a new product launch, I want to arrange a press conference. You can only do a local press conference with very expensive budget. You need to organize an expensive luncheon, right, for the
Right. Or
reporter.
something like that.
Yeah, and reporter will never take a online press conference. But
Hmm.
now reporter are open for virtual press conference.
Yes. Well, and
So you
that's.
could launch a new product, like one of my portfolio company launch a
Hmm.
virtual press conference. Right after that, they have 300 coverage around the world.
Wow. Well, and
300.
that's huge. And
So
global, like you went from a localized or even maybe at a conference where you were,
yeah,
paying for a booth or whatever, and you got very minimal. Look at what happened. Like, look at the exposure of that. That's big.
yeah. So it become global overnight. And
Hmm.
then they start to receive all these TV interview from different
Right.
country. And so they just broadcast, like one of the interview is from Germany and the company is in Hong Kong.
Hmm.
And they just broadcast the interview through the
Right.
TV channel
Right.
and sharing about what they are doing.
Yeah.
And if you are having a product that can actually be global in their place, it's a very amazing story. The COVID, because they provide software management for event.
Mhm.
So the COVID make the revenue go down to zero
Right.
within a few months. All the events stop, zero revenue. So they
Hmm.
pivot within 2 months. They develop this online event platform, and their revenue 3x
Went crazy.
compared to before.
Went crazy.
Went
Exactly.
crazy.
Yeah. Went.
And the virtual press conference, the coverage globally, like more than 300 media coverage, and then the follow-up interview, they become global. Yeah. So these are very good examples to really showcase how risk can be an opportunity.
At 100%. So,
Yeah.
how do people contact you?
At the moment, I have a big problem that too many people contact me directly.
Via your website, LinkedIn? How would you like them to contact
No,
you?
they found me. They found
They
my
just
email
find
address.
you.
They found my email address. It's so too
Won't give out.
easy to
I
get.
won't give out your email.
Now, every year I receive more than 1,000 founder send
Wow.
email to my inbox.
Oh,
So,
that's a good problem to
so,
have.
so every day I need to clean the email. So I need to develop some methodology. Yeah. And
There you go.
this is one reason really push me to launch one of our projects,
Mm-hmm.
which because it solved my pain point. I have
Yes.
too many founders send me email, want to pitch us,
Mm-hmm.
but I really don't have enough time to reply one by one and give
Yes.
advice or give feedback. It's impossible. And
Very
sometimes
difficult.
I would even, some of the email just accumulate too many. I can't read it
Mm-hmm.
one by one. I don't have time to open. I need to delete it without open. That was um, some problem that I go through, and I feel really bad. I want to solve this pain point. I want to make everything more scalable, including our feedback to founder more scalable. So we developed something for the founder
That's great.
so that,
So
yeah,
that sounds great.
we are now in a beta version. We are
Oh,
now-
that's great.
so we didn't promote yet. We only invite some founder who approach us to join this beta testing. We have more than 100 founder join
That's
this
great.
beta testing. So I can give you a invitation link for
I would
your
I would like an invitation
audience.
link for my either my audience or I have a cohort there. I have about 17 founders there. So I
I
can
see.
I can give you 17 potential companies.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have a Slack group. We
Oh,
call it
okay.
a founder support community.
Wonderful.
So we support the founders through this Slack group.
All right.
And all our feedback, all the resources that we organize for the founder will be
In that
organized in
group.
different channel. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. In
organized
that
in
group.
different channel. And then all our feedback will also can be shared, recycled to other founder.
Oh, that's
So
great. Yeah.
this help us to do it more scalable.
In a more scalable way. That's what we did. We put our accelerator online and made
Yeah.
ourselves way more scalable.
Yeah. So I can share you the invitation link,
That
and
would
we are
be
going
that
to.
would be lovely. I will share it with my cohort companies. I won't put it
That
like
would be great.
out, but I'll share it with the ones I have, and I think
So
they'll appreciate that.
at the moment, we welcome the any opinion and advice, and then we are
Sure.
planning for a formal launch in the coming January.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Thank you so
And
much, Carmen. One more
and
thing
one
before we
last
sign
thing
off.
is because we always have a lot of invitation and we also speak for a lot of different events.
Mm-hmm.
And usually those events will give us some free ticket.
Mm-hmm.
So we will also share these free ticket in the platform.
In the platform. That's important because it's always good to hear all different types of viewpoints. And like you said, if it's on a global stage, it's also good to hear all the different types of things and trends going on in other places as a company. Carmen, this has been a wonderful conversation. I want to thank you, Carmen, from Click
Thank you so
Ventures
much.
for being our guest on the Female VC Lab podcast.
Yeah, thank you.